Praise the Lord. This Wednesday, July 15th, at exactly 9 o'clock, all roads are leading to Cadman Plaza. Yes, we're going to march over the Brooklyn Bridge. What will we be shouting? That God will bring down the walls that are insurmountable and impenetrable. That God will bring them down and allow his name to be honored. The Bible says that we were created to glorify God. And not just to glorify him, but we were created to enjoy him. And I need to tell you that in this Jericho March, we're coming against racism, systemic white supremacy, hatred, bigotry, evil. We're coming to pray. We're marching, not protesting. We are telling the police that we want, guess what, a change, but we want to work with you. We're coming for healing. We're coming for forgiveness. Our nation needs healing. Be there. Be there. Don't miss this historical event. It was concocted by God, and we, Bishop Albert Jameson, Bishop Eric Figueroa, Bishop Claudio, and myself, Bishop Doug, will be marching across the Brooklyn Bridge in front of the City Hall to tell the world that Jesus is the answer for our problem. May God bless you. I'll see you there July 15th, 9 o'clock.
I like the way I am. Though I've got a long way to go, I like the road that I'm on. Every day I'm learning more. I like the way I made. Not another one quite like me, no. After all is said and done, I'm happy with me. I like the way I am. Though I've got a long way to go, I like the road that I'm on. And every day I'm learning more.
Good evening. Thank you for tuning in with me on tonight, another Monday night. I'm so excited about tonight. I thank everyone who tuned in last night. Tonight is going to be part 2 of Mean Girls. Last week we pointed out some issues. Tonight we want to talk about resolution. How can we become better? Excuse me. So we have just a few housekeeping rules. I'm asking that you take a few moments right now, share this video. We want to get the video out. We want to get the word out so that everyone can join in. We want you to post your questions, post your comments. Please, throughout the show, we will get to them. If you have something to say, something you want us to discuss, please don't feel free to talk about it on tonight with us. Tonight, I have back joining me. We have none other than Porsha Wakefield.
Hi, everybody.
Next up, we have Anais Belgrave.
Hey, everyone.
Thank you. These were our guests on last night. And then tonight we decided to bring on a younger person, a millennial. So tonight we have Brittany Daniels with us tonight.
Hi, everybody.
So this is going to be amazing. I'm so excited. Hey, Chantel. Thank you, guys. Thank you, everybody, for joining. Good evening, Keisha. Thank you. Tonight, we want to jump right into it. Just a short recap from last week. We talked about some issues that was going on. And I'm briefly Anais she talked about how, when she was pregnant in the church and how her leaders at that time brought her to the front and made mockery of her and how that made her feel in the church, young, trying to find her way, just doing things. She wasn't married yet, and how, these things have become a big issue in the church. And then Porsha talked about her experience in church, different things that went on. And so tonight, just briefly, we're going to touch on the mean girl aspect. Brittany, give me just some experience regarding with you, and maybe an experience you had with mean girls in the church.
So if everybody knows me, I'm a PK. So I grew up a PK. I was PK my whole life. My parents have been in ministry. So that in itself, you deal with a lot of, I would say, backlash and opinions and difficulties within the ministry from people. And I'm the youngest of my siblings. I grew up with, older people in my church, trying to build relationships with the young people my age. I've had moms tell their kids not to hang around me. I've had older ones just antagonize me in different ways. I was too grown because my mother let me wear makeup at 15. I was too grown because I had color in my hair. I was too grown because I hung out with my sisters. So just that backlash and that expectation of the people in your church, if you do something, they feel some type of way. If you do this, they feel some type of way. I'm the pastor's daughter, so it's always just your constant talking point for other people. And at some point, you get sick of it. And you get sick of people. You want to lash out. You want to respond, but you can't because you have to be mindful that your parents are who they are. So it just made me have tough skin. So I just became tough and put up this defense mechanism where I'm not going to let what you say, in your opinion, affect me. So in return, I feel like because I was picked on and antagonized, that I just put up this shell that I'm not going to let anybody get that close to me or affect me. So now I have a really hard exterior, if you will. I don't let my mother is the friendliest person you'll ever meet, where I immediately have my guard up and I side eye everybody until I know them, because you never know what people's intentions are. So growing up in church and being a PK makes you put up this defense mechanism because people are just mean, literally because of who your parents are. So that's my experience, just with the people in my church in general, the adults who were, supposed to be older than me, antagonizing me and being intimidated, and just having to put up that defense my whole life, my whole childhood. It's been a lot.
And so I'm glad that you said that, because a lot of times people feel like, the pastor's kids are mean, they're not nice, they feel entitled, right? And I'm sure, maybe Porsha and Anais, you may have had that experience where you notice that, the pastor's kids are a little bit standoffish. And so, but it's because of things that they have experienced, and things that they have seen, right? And that's just with anybody in church. Sometimes people are not mean just to be mean. It's because of things that they have experienced from other people. And so now we want to break that cycle, because we don't want to be mean girls anymore. And Brittany, I'm really glad that you said that, because when I met you, it was at you came with Kyle one time to our church. It was like a thing, and you had that hard exterior and you weren't very nice. And I thought to myself, wow, she's very standoffish. She's not the nicest person. Good evening, Ann. And so, for that, sometimes without thinking that someone has experienced something to make them feel the way they are or be how they are, we got to extend the grace to people, because sometimes it's just because we've experienced things and we don't know how to, get through them. So what would you say to Porsha, what would you say to a young lady that's going to come into the church after this pandemic has happened, and all she know is the mean girl? How do you feel like we should now start embracing these new people that's coming in?
You want my honest opinion?
Absolutely.
I love her.
You sure? You sure? Because I wouldn't recommend it. I wouldn't recommend. And God knows my heart. I can only be truthful. In the space that I'm in, and in the journey that I'm in, I wouldn't recommend any young woman to seek the church as her refuge. And I say that not because of my experiences have shaped my perspective or my opinion on this or my belief on this, but simply because being a young woman from the streets, being groomed in the streets, and knowing what I've experienced, and then having to walk into church and I just wouldn't recommend it, because I honestly feel like The Black church is not where it's supposed to be as far as it relates to nurturing Black women, as it relates to developing those things that Black women need, such as healing and all of these things. It's just something that I personally wouldn't recommend. I just, so that's I wouldn't recommend it. And I just wouldn't. I would recommend therapy or meditation, but I just honestly feel, because of what I've experienced and seeing that there hasn't been really any real changes, any real, and I don't want to generalize the Black church, but I'm not going to pretend like I've seen much of a change, but I wouldn't recommend any sister from the world to go to church.
So here's my question to that, because I understand that you have experienced certain things and you've gone through certain things. Um, is it safe to say that because you haven't been a part of a ministry or in a ministry, like you're saying that you don't see the change, but there are changes. There are people that are in the church that are genuine. There are genuine women in the church that are really seeking for change. And so we've got to not and I understand when you talk about from your experiences, but the
Right.
church hasn't always been bad to you. So there are some good points of it. And so for that, you wouldn't encourage another woman to go to church?
No, because again, you're asking for my perspective. Like, if I wouldn't go around saying, I wouldn't have a smear campaign against the church. I wouldn't go around and every time I have a chance to speak, I would say don't go to church. But if someone genuinely came to me and wanted my advice or my opinion, or recommendation on, where to seek refuge or where to seek healing, I would not say the Black church. And I'm not saying that all churches are bad. That's why I said, from my experiences, it has shaped my perspective. But to sit up here and say, oh, yeah, girl, go here, go there. I'm not saying that the church has been so bad to me that I'm just so bitter. I'm just saying that where I am in life is just not what I personally think is something that I need.
How about you, Anais? What do you say?
Um, I definitely understand where Portia's coming from, but I think that it's going to take a lot of courage from both parties, where the young lady or whomever is coming in kind of goes in with, like, she gonna need a good sister friend to be like, listen, girl, all right, we going to church, but understand that they are filled with people who are jacked up. Even if they don't want you to know, they messed up and jacked up just like you. So have have high expectations, but not so high that it puts it above the God that you are seeking. Like, you get what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
I think as far as the church goes, like we mentioned last week, we first got to start with ourselves, because we trying to heal folks and we just bleeding on everybody. I think
Mm-hmm.
we're dealing with a lot of trauma and hurt and disgruntledness and a whole bunch of just past trauma. And until we can, there's a saying that says you can't conquer what you don't confront. So I
Right.
think a lot of us need to look in the mirror and really find those like deep rooted issues within ourselves. Because I think a lot of times what happens is when a young lady comes into a church, or whomever comes in, and they show signs of who they once were, it becomes a trigger. And that's because we haven't dealt with our own trauma and our own insecurities and our own, issues, whatever the case. So I think the first step is for the church to heal the church. Like, we need heal within ourselves first. So that way when they do come in, we're fully equipped for it. Because right now we're not. Like, I think that's what Portia basically was trying to say. Right now, many churches, I'm not going to say all, but many of them they're not equipped. So we have to deal with us first. We're going to have to talk more, amongst the boards, aside from who's paying their tithes and offerings, and that's stuff that is important. But at the end of the day, the only thing God is really concerned about is the soul. So if our souls are right first, then we are going to be better able to take anybody who comes in. So I think it's going to have to deal with us first. And like I mentioned last week, we have to be open for therapy and real conversations, and when we gather around outside of our Sunday attire and just saying, let's meet up on Friday night and let's just have a, like how we all talking about Jada and Will Smith. We need to have a red table talk. Let's just sit down and let's talk. And we need more people within the church who are equipped to handle the situation. So yes, everybody wants to be a missionary and everybody wants to be an ordained minister, but we need people who are going to go to schools and become clinical therapists and counselors. So that way, when they come in, we can do more than hand them a glass of water. We can actually start the healing from the inside out.
Exactly, because when we first have to really look at ourselves, right? And like you
Oh
said,
yeah,
begin the healing within ourselves. Because if we're not healed, I don't care where we try to go, who we try to minister to, what doors God opens for us. We're not going to be successful in that walk if we're not first healed.
that's
Because we
right.
can't we have to get past our emotions. And it is my
Yeah,
prayer. Like I know that Porsha, you've been through a lot, you've experienced a lot. It's really my prayer that you get healed past those feelings so that you can see that, like you said, that every black church is not the same, but
yeah,
there has to be a level of healing that you experience so that you don't look at it like that anymore. And I know that that comes over time. So Brittany,
hmm
what would you say? You're a millennial, you're young, you deal with you speak to young ladies all the time. What do they need? What are they looking for? Because we need to know these things.
yeah.
So honestly, it's about realness. And growing up in church, I've been in church my whole life. I There's a certain level of realness that has not taken place in every church. And when these women come in broken, abused,
hmm
a mess, it makes people in church have to look in the mirror at themselves
Cells.
and see the healing that the inner them that they haven't dealt with yet. So then you're casting your judgment and you're deflecting your judgment onto other people because you haven't dealt with you. And I
hmm
think that's the issue that we have to get to is we have to deal with ourselves, and really look at who we are, look at the ugliness and embrace that so that you
Yeah,
can embrace somebody else's ugliness and have grace for the next person. Give yourself grace so that you can extend that to somebody else. Um, Girls my age, young women my age, and coming after us, they're exposed to so much more than
hmm
what the
oh
earlier
yes,
generations were exposed to at their age. So there are things that they're coming in and they're going to be real with you. They're not going to fake it. They're not going to be phony about it. They're not going to cover it up. They're going to give you the uncut raw version of themselves. And in return, we have to give these women, these young ladies, the uncut raw version of ourselves because we are
yes,
not perfect. I don't care what your title is. I don't care how many
that's
times you've
right.
been ordained. I don't care who you serve and how big your church is. There is an ugly truth about each and every one of us. And we
Absolutely.
have to accept that. We have to embrace that. And we have to be able to share that with the next person. There's never a time that you should be ashamed of where you came from or try to hide that and put on a facade that you are so perfect. Nobody's
hmm
perfect. Nobody is perfect. And we have to let girls know that so that they're not aspiring to be how we look, how we seem, but they need to aspire to truly be healed and experience true
Absolutely.
freedom and be who they are. Everybody's not
Vulnerability.
an
Yes.
evangelist. Everybody's not a prayer warrior. Who are you?
hmm
What is your passion? Who are you? Who are you called to be? It's not about these church titles and all of these,
Yes.
accolades. It's about
Accolades.
when outside of the four walls, who are you? What do you
That's
have?
right.
What are you contributing to the world? So I think that we have to really kind of step back from these titles. I'm not coming against titles and
Right.
licenses and
hmm
formations, but put down your title and really
Be real.
woman to woman talk to people that are coming
Transparent.
in. Yes,
Yes.
they're looking for realness. They're looking for
Who they
your
can be
story.
vulnerable with. Yeah.
Yes, they're
But the
looking for
church is
your
pushing
story.
away.
And
The
it's to the point where it's just like, where are they gonna go? Where are they
That's
gonna go?
right.
If nobody is gonna be real, where are they gonna go? I feel like the church should be the one place where you could come and know that everybody in here is dirty, but we're in here to get
Yes.
dirty. Like,
I,
I
absolutely.
the person sitting next to me, I know they dirty. They might not be as dirty as I am, but they came in here the same way I came in. and now we're all trying to get clean. We're all trying to, live the same life, heal the same. So it's about
Mm.
transparency. That's
I,
Abs-
literally the key.
I
Absolutely. Portia, you wanted to say something?
I just wanted to say, like, piggyback off of the both of them. It's like, we oftentimes think that women who reject the idea of finding refuge within the framework of religion or have somewhat been hurt or rejected, and it's not always that. I feel like because I have unsubscribed to um church, that I found God outside of
Mm.
church. This is the most that, because I'm not restricted, and my I don't have to, my definition is not yours. You know what I'm saying? I'm able to, I don't have to deal with the politics and the personalities. You understand? And that's my thing. And like Brittany said, a lot of these girls want real. And when you have television shows and black women who are healers outside of religion, like Alana Bassan, and you have these type of black women and the red table women who have opened up their spaces and made them safe for black women and black issues.
Mm.
What's the point? You got to kind of step aside, I mean, and really think, like, okay, so why do I have to go there and be judged,
Mm.
and I can just buy a self-help book from Alana Bassan
Wow.
and don't have to worry about it? So that's where I'm at.
Well,
Until we make it, until not we, but until the church makes it safe for black women, I just don't feel like, because I love us for real, like, and I'm not saying that, black women in the church don't love each other. I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying that is that I love black women too much to let them walk into the lion's den.
mm. So, but okay. So my thing to that is I get what you're saying, but then because you have such a passion for women outside of what you feel like is not being done in the church, then maybe that could be God's way of using you
As
to
a
be the
catalyst too.
light, right?
Okay.
To be the catalyst to draw these women to say, listen, everybody in the church, you may experience these hurts, but listen, I'm a black woman in the church and I'm not like that. And you know what? God is bigger than all of that. That could be God's way of using you instead of you saying, well, I wouldn't recommend the church, because let's be honest, the church, it's not, we are the church, right? And since we are the church, we are the people that are causing these offenses sometimes, most times. It just so happens that we are the church, we're coming into the building with all of our issues, like Brittany said, all of our insecurities, all of our, um, ways of thinking, and it's not always right. We've got to learn how to be real. I think Anais said and Brittany said, we got to be real. Um, could you put that comment back? I forgot what. Okay, people need to see a difference. The people are the church, not the institution. Absolutely. Like we as women, we've got to be the difference. We've got to show different. And a lot of times people don't want to be honest. Women don't want to be transparent because you have
Yeah.
some women that can't hold water. It's like if we have these safe havens, why are we
Hmm.
having all of these women's conferences? Why are we having all of these things and then only to walk out and we're hearing it outside of that?
Hmm.
We've got
Hmm.
to learn how to be wells. I think Brittany, your mother said that on my first show. Someone taught her how to be a well, how to be able to
Wow.
hold things.
Hold. That's right.
We've got to be we got to be well women. We got to know how to
Hmm.
hold things. We're breaking each other instead of building
Yeah.
each other. And
Hmm.
we are the church. It's
Yeah.
not the building, it's us. We're doing it. And each one of us have to be accountable for the things that
Accountable.
we've
That's right.
done. And I love the fact that Brittany, you said, like, come on, we got to be transparent. But the reason why a lot of us don't want to be transparent is because we're afraid. But we got to become women that are unafraid
It's
to
a
speak
cycle.
our
Yeah.
truth. We got to break that cycle.
Yeah.
Stop
It is.
being afraid to speak about the things that you've gone through. I think Chantel posted it earlier. She said that there needs to be someone to feel hopeful.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Women want to, she said, people need to know that someone been where they are so they can actually get help and feel hopeful.
Yeah. That's very
Oh
Does
yeah.
important.
anybody?
We also need to be resourceful because,
Yes.
telling me that there's hope, but then not giving me a resource. Okay, so check it. So if I'm dealing with depression or I'm dealing with suicidal thoughts, okay,
Mhm.
and I'm not taking away from the power of prayer because I feel like it should be, you should use it. Okay, I feel like everybody should pray, but telling me that you can't. I just personally feel like we can't just pray away depression. We just can't. You can't, because if that was the case, nobody would be depressed, right? That's just my
Right.
personal opinion. But how? Yeah, we need to be resourceful because I ain't always been a safe space for Black women. I've been venomous. You feel me?
Right.
So let's be clear with that because I know it's people watching that's probably like, so I'm not trying to be hypocritical. I haven't always been
Right.
a safe space. But even in that, even after learning, because sometimes it takes for somebody to do to you what you've done to others for you to get shit correct and be like, oh, okay, so I don't like her telling my business, like let me not tell other people's business. But even in that, how can I be resourceful to this sister? How can I say, okay, she's dealing with depression, okay, let's give her this. This is what you need. Let's
Right.
give her information for this. Because what my personal opinion, why the mean girl culture is existing and prevalent in church is because we're not resourceful. Where are the resources? How can we become better women? Because when we can't become better for ourselves, how the hell you gonna become better for somebody else?
For
I think it's
anybody
something
else.
that Brittany are. Yeah, like, okay, so how are you gonna tell me that I need to go to school and I need to do this to be a better woman so God can use me, and you ain't even got a GED or high school diploma? How are
Mm.
you going to lead me? How are you going to direct me to who I need to be? So what it is like Brittany said, I think the queen down here is you got a bunch of women with no vision, but have the idea of it, trying to lead the blind leading the blind in
Yeah.
church. And then
Mm.
when you see that this advice and these prayers ain't really going nowhere, then here we are.
But
We
to a
mad
degree,
because
you're absolutely right, Portia. You said something that is so, I'm gonna get right to you, but you said something that is so amazing. You said when prayers are not answered, then people become mad. But we've got to
Yeah.
understand that just because we prayed for a thing does not mean that God will answer it the way that we want to. And then once you pray, there has to be action.
Some type of
There
action
are things that we are accountable for that we've got to,
in order to
it can't
release the
just
blessing.
be
Yeah.
right. It can't be just, oh, we prayed, or oh, just the mother prayed, or oh, just our first lady or our pastor
Yeah.
prayed. There is a level of responsibility for the believer to do in order for those prayers to be answered, just like a prophetic word. Just because someone
Yeah.
gave a prophetic word, if it didn't come to pass, that doesn't necessarily mean it's
That
because
God
the
lied
person
or
who gave the
right was
word
off.
was a liar or was off,
Hmm.
or that God's word is not true.
True. Hmm.
Sometimes it's because in our heart we did not believe, and therefore that canceled out what God was going to do. All of these things are a process. And we've
Yeah.
got to
so
allow God to work in the processes and understand that everything to everything there is a season, and God
Season.
moves in
Hmm.
his own time. And we just got to be confident and trust that the God that we serve is not going to leave us, even though people are failed people. We're people, we're human, and we sometimes we hold each other up to a higher standard. But I think Chantel said that we got to get rid of the mentality of leaving people where they are, because that does
Yeah.
not serve anymore. Brittany, you were
Jesus
gonna
No.
say
doesn't.
something.
Well, when I was gonna piggyback on Portia talking about resources, and I think that's really important too, because we do live in a generation of therapy, and we are learning more about mental health. And in the Black community, we're learning more about our mental health, how our traumas, our triggers, and things like that. So I do think it's important for us to give people the word, give people prayer, but also give people resources. Everybody is not
Absolutely.
a counselor. Everybody
Hmm.
is not equipped
That's
and
right.
capable to deal with everybody's trauma. And
Oh
it's
yeah.
okay to say that. It's okay to
Mm-hmm.
be in leadership and say or
Know your
understand that you
role.
are not equipped to deal
That's
with
right.
certain
Mhm.
trauma. So
Yes.
therapists are very important. I think that if you have certain traumas and certain triggers and issues and you're broken in certain ways, you should go to somebody that is able to talk things through with you, even if that is a Christian therapist. I think
Yeah.
therapy is a great resource that we need to give people. There are
Absolutely.
plenty of Christian therapists available, and I think that that's a resource that is underused and undervalued in the church. And
Mm-hmm.
I don't really know why,
Cause
because
we okay.
sometimes you need to just talk things through with somebody who understands there may be some sort of chemical imbalance and something
Right.
else going on that you're not always going to get to by preaching to somebody or in our women's
Mm-hmm.
self-help groups. And
Right.
everybody's not equipped to host these meetings, these
Meetings.
groups,
Yeah.
these conferences. Everybody is not equipped for that, and that's okay. So I think it also is about discernment of what's your ministry,
Mm-hmm.
what's your
Yes.
assignment, and what's not.
Big
And
time.
it's okay to know your lane and to recommend these other resources that can help the women in your church or the women coming in and people who are broken beyond your repair.
Yes.
So I think that that's a great resource. And I think everybody at some point should sit down on somebody's couch and just
Oh
talk
yeah.
through their issues.
Listen, I totally agree with that. I think Portia said that last week as well. You know, it's okay to go and seek help outside of
That's
the
right.
church. It is okay to
Yeah.
go and seek a counselor. We need that because listen, while we're putting all of our burdens on our pastors and first ladies, and then when
Mm-hmm.
they don't measure up to what we feel like, or the
Exactly.
evangelists in the church, or our sisters, people are human. They go through different things. We've got to be okay with saying, you know what? I'm going to be responsible for my own self, and I'm going to go to somebody, like you said, outside of the church and speak to a counselor.
Yeah,
That
and you
is
can see a Christian
okay.
black. There are Christian black therapists that you can see that will, give you the word of God, but also break it down to you real and help you work
That's
through
right.
some of those childhood traumas and things that you dealt
Yeah.
with that you're not always gonna get in the women's Bible study session at church, and
Yeah.
that's
Right.
okay.
And you
But a
can't
lot
we can't dance and shout over everything.
of you
That's
sure
right.
can't.
Come on with that,
Those
please, Lord.
those time
You
those
can't.
time those
Tried
times
it.
are
I
over.
tried it. I
Yeah,
Um
the
tried it.
let
emotionalism of it
wait.
all is it's not, we're not healing anybody. We're not really dealing with the root. We're just
Yeah.
emotionalizing people
Emotional.
in the
Mhm. We
pews
cry.
to get them happy. It's like you get them high and then they go home and
It
they
don't work.
hit that
Yeah.
rock
Come
bottom
Yeah.
again.
down.
It doesn't
Yeah,
work.
so it's
Yeah.
not a real healing. It's a facade. It's just an
It doesn't
emotional
work.
high that they're
ab-
on Sunday.
It
Mm-hmm.
doesn't work. It doesn't work. It
Let
just
me
doesn't
read.
work.
Let me read this right quick. Shalika Williams says the underlying problem is that when women are in the church and are leaders in church or hold a title or being used in a department, they abuse it and forget the meaning of ministry and how to nurture those who are broken. We have to stop forgetting where we came from to get where we are. Wow. That
Yeah.
is that is an amazing point. I want each of you
Mm.
ladies to take just a few moments and speak on that.
Let me read it.
Basically we're women in the church are using their power, the power that they are
Yeah.
given.
So that's like what we talked about last week when people see, like, okay, I'll go back to myself again. When someone, I've had people come to me all the time, old leadership, and automatically come and tell me, oh, I want to be your spiritual parent, or I want to do this. And that's because they saw a place in me that was vulnerable and was seeking, it was a void. And sometimes I think we don't want to admit it, but a lot of people in general, especially the women in the church, have this God complex, so they feel like as if a problem can't get solved unless they interject themselves. Like, forget about Jesus, forget about his son, forget about God,
Mm,
forget about God. We don't care about any of that. Like, unless they are the ones doing it themselves, they feel like as if your problems can't be solved. You'll never feel complete. That void will never be filled unless I put myself in there. And I think that's one of the biggest issues as to why a lot of women in the church are rejecting the church overall, is because what is supposed to be a safe place has become almost like pimping. Like we're
A
using
cesspool.
right, we're
Cesspool.
using them to get, to kind of make ourselves feel good. It's not really about glorifying God. And once again,
Mm.
when you don't go back to that thing that is the root, because a lot of times, like we mentioned earlier, it's a repeated cycle. So because my former leader did it to me, so I can do it. And I've had a pastor literally say to me when I went to them, like I mentioned last week, when I said, why do you treat me like a trophy and you take me down and you shine me up only when the guests come, and then you put me back once the doors are closed, and I don't get brought back out again until the next, convention or something. They said, well, so and so did it to me and I made it through. So we go through this way of thinking, well, that's just the way. Sometimes it's the only way that they know, and they think they deem that thing to be right,
Yeah.
and we just kind of run with it.
Portia.
Um, I think a lot of it comes from, wanting to be validated. It comes from the ego. A lot of times we abuse our positions. When we refuse to allow our testimonies to be God centered instead of when our testimonies begin to be self centered instead of God centered,
Yeah.
we make room for the ego to come in, and
Mm-hmm.
as the sister explained, said below, God center. I've never really experienced any woman in the church abuse her power to an extent
Mm.
that it would make me look at her like, you know. But I don't know. I have my own thing, but I've never. So I really don't have an opinion on that because I've never like seen it up close and personal. But I do feel like a lot of times when we begin to glorify ourselves and we begin to think that, oh, if it wasn't for us, we wouldn't have never, and
Yeah.
that's when all of that comes in and we begin to abuse our power and we become untrustworthy and all that extra jazz. But that's all I have to say on that.
Brittany.
Well, I think that abuse of power and holding these titles hostage definitely has a lot to do with women who don't know who they are, and
Yeah.
they need these titles to validate them because of low self-esteem. A lot of these issues with women stems from a root of low self-esteem and not
Oh yeah.
being validated within themselves. Because guaranteed, if you are somebody who knows it, like who you are, and is on that journey of developing and coming into the knowledge of self, you wouldn't
Mm-hmm.
hold these titles to be so precious to you because you know that you are somebody outside of that. Like when you leave
Yeah.
church and at your job or wherever you are in the grocery store, you don't have that title and nobody knows you, you still have validation. So some of
Right.
these women come into church and they get these titles and they hold these things and they abuse their power, and it's because they don't know who they are. They're not secure in themselves. But again, it's like, what are we doing in church to actually validate women and to
Mm-hmm.
make women feel, that they have purpose outside of these minuscule things or these titles that they're not going to take
In
everywhere with
God's
them.
eyes, yeah.
What are we really doing to validate the ministry outside of the title? Because the title has nothing to do with your call or what your purpose is or what your passion is. So validation has a lot to do with that abuse of power and women just not knowing and being fulfilled within themselves.
I totally agree with you. We've got to learn how we got to know ourselves, and we've got to be like I said, we got to hold each other accountable
Yeah.
for the things that we say and the things that we do. Because listen, make no mistakes about it. People, yeah, they are watching us. And
Oh
there
yeah.
has been, and because there is so much division in the church with women, we
Mm-hmm.
we can no longer dance and shout over
Hmm.
issues. We can no longer when someone's preaching be the loudest
The
person in the
loudest one.
church because
Mhm.
someone is touching on something that our sister did
Just
to us.
told, yeah.
Come on, we
Hmm.
know that we've done it at one point or another. We cannot be the loudest when someone's talking about haters, because these
Oh.
are big things that we
Right.
feel like as women that we have to talk about. So,
Mm-hmm.
Porsha, I know that you feel how you feel, and we're not negating how you feel about certain issues, right?
Yeah.
I want to know, what would it take for you to be all in back in the church, because honestly, I know that God has a great purpose for you, and I want to see you use that to the best of your ability. And I know you may feel like, I don't want to do that in the church, but I'm telling you, you have what these young ladies need. So what,
Mm-hmm.
at this point, with church opening back up, if God told you, I need you to go back in the church, submit yourself in a church
Mm.
to a ministry because I have need of you, what would you do different?
Mm.
You know, I've been sitting here like just wondering like damn, how did I get to this place? How did I get from, having a zeal for God's house and God's people to now where I have a strong disdain for it.
Mm.
As I was hearing Brittany and Anais, I'm sorry if I
Anais.
I,
Anna, just call me Anna.
and I'm just sitting here like, what did I do? And I know what I've done that brought me here. And to answer your question, only God Himself could bring me back to the church. I have no type of I have no type of, I don't feel convicted. I'm not reprobated. I don't hate the church. I don't hate God, obviously. But I just honestly feel that at this stage in my life, because of what I've been through and because of what I know who God is and what He has brought me through, I cannot afford to go to church and deal with the stupid stuff that comes with it. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't have time to deal with and I want to make it clear that I'm not trying to sit here and feel and be the victim, but I'm not going to also act like I haven't been the victim, because I've been
Right.
on both sides. But what I'm saying is, like, being used by God, when I didn't never want to be used by God, has put a target on my back. And the same women who I thought could help me understand who I am in God were the same women who were intimidated by me and used my proclivities as to shoot me down, to use it against me.
Mm.
And because it's happened so much, and I know a lot of it has to do with my lack of discernment and me just being, whatever, rebellious and unorthodox. That had a lot to do with it. But I just feel like I'm more beneficial outside than in the church. And I just don't, honestly, I don't want to go back. I feel like there is no real advocacy for Black women. There is advocacy for, there are advocates for traditionalized Black women that have done it the right way, or what we perceive to be the Black way. But there is no true advocates for the Black women that, okay, I go and shout, and then I mess up again, and then I do it again, and then you get tired of me and my shit because, oh, well, she don't want to be delivered. Yeah, I do want to be delivered, but I don't know how. And you telling me that if I dance and if I do this, that I'm going to be delivered in 30 days, and I'm not delivered. I'm still promiscuous. I'm still lying. I'm still scamming. I'm still cursing. I'm still doing all of these things. And instead of you doing introspective work and saying, hey, maybe I don't have what it takes to help this sister get to where she needs to be, as Brittany said, being able to pass it along. Hey, I'm not an expert in that. You drop the ball.
Wow.
And I just feel like I don't have to be in church to be delivered. And that's just mine, because I'm at peace now that I'm not subscribed to any church. and this is not to throw shade at any church that I've ever been. But I've always felt like I've done church because I don't want nobody to think that I'm demonic or this Jezebel. I just never felt like I needed that institution. So
Wow.
to answer your question, I don't have. It would only take God Himself to get me back in church.
Mm.
Good answer. Do you believe that he can?
God can do anything, but I think God knows
That's
my
right.
heart, and God knows that I'm so disappointed in the institution of church. I the thought of going back to church makes me sick to my stomach, and
Wow.
that's the God honest truth. There's nothing that nobody can say. No, and I'm pretty sure that a lot of black women feel the way that I feel, to feel like, yo, you know, I got you, and you mess up, and instead of being restored, you're being ridiculed. You're being dragged in
Mm.
conversations. You're being called a Jezebel. You're being called a whore. You're being called messy, and you just real with yours.
Right.
Yeah.
And I can do.
This, go ahead.
So listening to Porsha again, I think that there's a takeaway there. There's a point where everybody has to, we have to stop doing this thing of like, well, not my church, not me. So, we
Mm.
can't, don't generalize because not me. But again, like, how many people have had these experiences and not spoken on it? So really,
That's
the
true.
institution of church after the pandemic will never be the same. We may
Absolutely.
never go back into church buildings. We may never do these 1,000-person conferences again. We may never see
Mm.
each other face to face and have all of these events and brunches and ladies' night and whatever. We may never have that again. So
Wow.
what are we gonna do, and how are we gonna embrace the change that God is
Mm.
giving us? Because He's
Mm-hmm.
shifting us to something new,
Absolutely.
and He's trying to get our attention, because the
Yes.
conventional way, the traditional way, is not going to be, will never be the same. So we have to
Wow.
listen to how many people have these experiences with us being trustworthy. There,
Exactly.
I've been in church my whole life. There are times where people are not trustworthy. There are times where we do a lot of gossiping. There are times that we
Mm-hmm.
share people's business. There are times that we're judging people, whether you're doing it to their face or behind their back. You're looking them up and down. You talk about
Mm-hmm.
what they come to church wearing, but you're not buying
Yes.
their clothes. So, like, what are we really taking away? And we have to stop saying, well, not my church, not this church, not this church. Every church needs to just, what are we doing? And how are we going to move forward and accept people, whether it's via Zoom, whether it's on the street corner? Like, what are we really doing to change and to
Yeah.
embrace what God is trying to do, and why He's allowing us to have this time to reflect on ourselves? Because
Yes.
we're His bride. And if His bride is ugly when He comes back, what are we supposed to
Hmm.
do? What are we supposed to do?
Mm.
So now is the time to beautify the body. Now is the time
Yes.
to reflect, look in the mirror at our ugly truths, and then move forward and beautify the parts of us that are not
Yes.
so beautiful. Because we have to prepare the world for the return of Christ, and we are
That's
not
the bottom
ready.
line. Yes.
We're not ready. So
At
this
all.
pandemic is really a like time to sit down, reflect,
Absolutely.
look in the mirror, and figure out what we need to do better, and how we can embrace more people, how we can share that's our job, is to share the good
Share
news
the
of Jesus.
gospel.
Our
That's
job is
right.
not to send people to hell and to condemn the
Right.
next person sitting next to us, or think our
Yeah.
sin is better than their sin because it's not this, like, no, that's
On
not our job.
display. Yeah.
So I think that moving forward, and what church is going to look like after this is not going to be what it looks like before this. And I think during this time, we have to think about the parts of us that need fixing, the parts of us
Yes.
that have abused people, the parts of us that have taken
Mm.
advantage of women, that have abused women. How many women do we know that have been abused in church by manipulation and
And
all
make it
sorts
right.
of things? And how do we make it right? How do we heal
Yes.
people that we have participated in breaking?
Yes.
Hmm.
Wow.
I want to read this comment. I think there is way too much emphasis on church as a place to gather. Church is the hearts of the people. Church is the organism that furthers God's agenda in the earth. Simply, church is a body, a community. However, all of us need to be pastored. Some way, discipleship is the key. In some way, discipleship is the key. Is key. It's not about a building. It's about building a community. And
I re-
what you said,
I'm
Porsha?
sorry. No, I'm sorry. I was reading.
Oh, I I totally agree with that. I thank you, Brittany, for that, because you are absolutely right. We have to get past the point. We're way beyond saying, not my church, not me, I wouldn't do, I never did, because at some point we've all been in this position. At
Jacked
some
up, yeah.
point, we all have felt how Portia feels. I'm not gonna lie. I felt that at one point in my life. I don't want to go to church. I
Mm-hmm.
don't want to do this. This is
Facts.
crazy.
A
Why
Yeah.
lot of
we
times it's like
faking? Right.
done. They
We
can
got
have
to
me.
be honest to say
Mm-hmm.
the problem is, and I understand, Portia, where you're coming from. The problem is there's not enough people standing up saying, I've been there. I've
Absolutely.
been there.
Lacks
I was
transparency.
hurt. Right. Lack of transparency. We've got
Mm.
to be community builders.
Yeah.
Hmm. And not only that, being able to say this isn't right. How we're handling our black women in the church is not right. Let's not do this. Like I said, it took for me to experience, to understand that I have to be my sister's keeper in real life.
Yeah.
And like I said, I'm not going to sit here and I feel like I shouldn't have to always put this disclaimer out, but I know church girls. You understand? Like I know what what she said, and I'm not acting like I've always been the perfect person, because I'm not. I'll never
Mm-hmm.
be perfect. You understand? But I'm real. You know what I'm
None
saying? I'm
of
real
us
about
have,
mine.
if we're honest.
But I just
Right.
feel like to say that if we to not put to not hold the church accountable for the damage it has caused on black women it's like victimizing or gaslighting the behaviors that have existed in the church, to say
Mm-hmm.
like, oh well, I mean, it's not always the church fault, but yeah, the damage is being done in the church. Because if I am coming to church and I'm already dealing with X, Y, and Z, and then I come in with an expectation, because let's just be real. I mean, we want the church to be deemed as this, extravagant place of healing and restoration, but then when it don't be, when the ugly side of it comes, exposes itself, we're like, well, it's not all the church. So which one do you want it to be? Because if the world has this expectation of church, and then when they get inside, it acts worse than the world, then who's responsible for the damage that's being done to if I'm coming in and I'm already hurt, and I come to your ministry and you hurt me even worse, is it my fault that I came into your church? It's not your fault that I'm hurt. If you was doing snake
Mm-hmm.
shit and hurting me and talking about me and just doing all this other stuff, it's not your
But
fault.
here's the thing. When we have to be careful when we're saying church, because we're the church. When we come into the houses of worship, we're bringing our church, us, into the houses of worship, and
Okay.
we the people are the ones that are doing the hurting. So it's not the houses of worship, it's the imperfect people that we are, that we come
Mm-hmm.
into church with the parts of us that we have not allowed God to deal with us with, to heal us from, to work through us and make us better, so that we're not hurting each
Mm-hmm.
other. It's us. We got to take
Yeah.
responsibility for ourselves. We cannot blame the kingdom. We can't blame the place where we all come to worship. We got to start blaming ourselves, holding ourselves accountable as people.
But
And
if
Dre
but
says,
if
but wait, Dre says, but the church is made up of imperfect people. There will be areas that need correction. But Portia, you can be the one to rectify. I don't know what happened. Or you can be the one that rectifies that.
But okay, so then in saying that too, then it's like, okay, so then to say what would bring, if I am the church, I don't need the institution, because if we're saying,
No,
if we're saying, no, I'm just saying, like, I'm trying to get a better understanding of what is the church. You know what I'm saying? Because if I am considered the church, then I don't need the institution. Then if I am the church, then I can always come back to myself, or which is the church, and allow healing and restoration to take place, because I'm in the church.
No,
I can dismiss the institution altogether and
the
stay home.
Bible says, the Lord says, forsake not ourselves assembling together with like-minded believers. It is for this cause that we gather together to gain strength. Now, we are not, because we are imperfect people, and a lot of us have gone through things, and we're not mature enough to, like you said, handle each other. And some people lack a maturity in a big way. A lot of us
yeah,
have not allowed ourselves to be fully submitted to what God is saying to us in the scriptures. We have not presented our whole selves. We are blaming the church. We are blaming each other. And I get it, because we are hurting each other. But we've got to stop blaming the place that we come to gather together, like the Bible says, and just take the onus off of the whole institution, and say, you know what,
yeah.
we are imperfect people coming to a perfect place where God dwells. How can we, as people that are imperfect, become better, so that way when we come into the church and we have people like you, Portia, that feel like, you know what, I've been hurt, I'm done with the church, I don't need the church. How are we going to deal with these things? And this is where I'm at. This is what I'm saying. We're not always going to make perfect decisions. Like you said, if you're honest and you said, I have not always been the perfect member or the perfect person. So now we've got to begin to say, since we all know we're not perfect people, since we know that we are the church, how are we going to change? Because God can use us outside of the four walls, yes,
Absolutely.
but that is not what He designed in His word. So, how do we get back to becoming and being what He called us, the church, to be in the kingdom, for the kingdom when we gather? Brittany.
Um, I want to say that it starts with our inner work. It starts with our inner work. It's about us knowing what our jobs are when we come through the doors, when we start ministering to people, when we are dealing with somebody. Like, what is your purpose? What is your call? What are you there to do? And what really is the church's assignment to people? As the institution, what are we called to do? How are we called to function? What is our assignment to our communities, to the people that walk through the door? And then us as the church, as the body of Christ, what are our individual calls and assignments to people? And really getting clarity on that aspect, because I think so many people are walking in assignments that are not theirs.
There's.
At all.
You're trying to do,
Yeah,
it's like trying to do too much. You're structured in too many different ways. Your
absolutely.
ministry is it's you're all over the place, when really it's
Chaotic.
like,
Very.
if you just focus
Hmm.
on the lane that God has you in this area, and then somebody else is strong in this area, I think then that's when you have the body. And that's
Yeah,
when you have community that's functioning in different levels and able to serve so many different purposes, because we have people operating in where they're actually supposed to be operating, and not trying to be everything to everybody all the time.
yeah.
I totally agree, because we've got to move past we all can identify what's wrong with the church, what's wrong with each other, but how are we going to love each other to wholeness, right?
You
Hmm.
got
Because
you
that
gotta love
that
self.
we got to learn, we got to love ourselves, we got to really take a look in the mirror and identify the parts of us that need healing, so then that way when we come together,
I am the opposite.
really, what happened?
Hmm.
Dre said that I can be the opposite of what I experienced. I am the opposite of what I experienced. I am.
Mm.
I'm not going to different churches and spewing hatred and division and discord. I'm not doing that. I am the opposite. I'm the opposite by removing myself and doing introspective work and saying what have I caused? How did I get this far? What did I do to bring me to this place of I never, if you've been paying close attention, I've never just blamed the church totally. I've always
Totally
taken
right.
accountability to say
Absolutely. For your
what
part, yeah.
what am I doing? So I am being the opposite of what I experienced by removing myself and figuring and unpacking mine, because the church as we know it, the institution rather, has not been a place that I've been able to find
Get to the
wholeness,
root.
right?
Right.
To get to the root of who I am. And I'm woman enough and real enough to say that I know I need to sit on somebody's couch. I sure do. ASAP. You want to know why? Because
Right.
I be done ended up back in jail because I just really
Yeah.
can't. But because I know this, and because I know that right now, the church, the institution, as I know, and my experience as a Black woman being subscribed to Christianity has not benefited me to a place where I can really find healing
Find
and be
wholeness,
whole
right.
and function and raise my daughters and break generational curses. It is a waste of my time and car fare to
Mm.
continue to go and shout and shout and shout. And by Monday, I'm dealing with the same thing. It's unproductive, it's unnecessary, and it's unexplainable. So I am the opposite, and I'm the opposite by spreading awareness and not, you know, I'm just spreading awareness, and I'm giving my truth on what it is in hopes that it will help other Black women who call themselves ministers of God's gospel to do introspective work to see what it is that they're not doing so that they can be to these women in the world what wasn't to them.
So, like,
So
can
I
I
am.
just say, this is like everybody is saying, "Oh, be the change you want to see, be the change you want to see." But I think it's important that everybody in our separate churches take in what Porsha is saying, what people's experiences are when they say they're experiencing in the institution of
Right.
church.
And not diminish
Because
them. Yeah.
we're teaching
Hmm.
people how to come to church, be emotional, shout, fall out, give offering, get up, but we're not teaching people how to live their life on Sunday when they are on Monday when they're tried, how to really conquer the demons that they're fighting when they go home. How are we teaching people how to live successful lives outside of the four walls? That's literally what it's about. So we come to church, we
Absolutely.
shout, we dance, but are we teaching people those scriptures and the
I want you to
word
go back
on
to that
how
comment.
we should live, how to be strong? You come to church and you hear about being a wife. You have to be, serve this person, serve
Yeah.
your man, blah
Yeah,
blah blah. But like being a
Portia
wife
said
is
that
not
last
everybody's
week.
ministry.
Hmm.
How are
Yep.
you a whole woman? How are we teaching people how to be self-fulfilled? How to
And
be,
whole. Yeah.
yeah. Are we
Healed.
teaching Black women how to be leaders in their own right? Are we promoting our daughters not to just belong to somebody, but really be somebody?
Mm.
You know what I'm
Wow.
saying? Like, are we really teaching women how to be whole women outside of the four walls of church, outside of a man, outside of all these things? Are we teaching them that? And I'm not bashing men again, but like, are we
Absolutely.
really raising and nurturing? Are we creating an environment to foster healthy, whole women? And I've been in church for a long time, and that hasn't always been the case. In a lot of our organizations and a lot of our conferences, we're not doing that. That's not what's being fostered. So I think we need, again, this is not a time to tell somebody to be that change. It's time for all of us to take
To be the
in what
change. Hmm.
experiences
Absolutely.
are and to be that change and to say, okay, well, if Portia experienced that at several
Uh,
places, then there's probably something that I can take back and help change my church environment,
Yeah.
whatever that may look like after the pandemic.
And to
Absolutely. I agree
and
with you, Brittany. Let me just read this portion before you go. Jillian Tinsley says, I've been so hurt and broken for many years. I was hurt by family and depended on my healing from church. But then I felt deeper in my pain. But when I got released from people, I began to heal. Church people can hurt you, but once your focus is on God, you'll be able to grow.
but who says
Mm.
that my
I don't think she's talking to you per
no, no, no,
se.
no.
I think she's just speaking in general.
But I'm just saying, like,
Dre said, I've been hurt by church, but if I didn't go to St. Mark with an open mind, I will still hate the church and not be moving in who God called me to be.
I think a
Mean
lot of
Girls are
times
just broken girls.
when we think about the body of Christ, we don't look at ourselves as
Wow, Verna, that's
a
good. Go ahead.
limb. I think a lot of times that when we think about the body of Christ, we look at ourselves as if we have to function like the whole body. No, you may just be called to be a big toe, and you're what keep that foot balanced, or you may, you know, or or you have some people who get their big toe amputated, and it kind of it alters the way that they walk. So when you look at something that's like considered so, so small or may not seem like a big thing, you may say, well, dang, I'm only a big toe in the church, but you a whole head, or you get the mouth, you get to speak. But if I cut the big toe off, you're gonna walk funny, and people gonna be able to see that something right. So I think when we start to look at ourselves as being that one thing, a part of that part of the body, and not feel the
Mm-hmm.
need to carry the weight and the responsibility, because Jesus already did that. Yes, that's his job. That's not my job. I'm gonna stay
Right.
in my
Mm-hmm.
lane,
Right.
player. I'm gonna be my big toe, and I'm gonna make sure I got my white nail polish buffed, and I'm gonna get bumping. Like that's just
may I,
that.
may I say something? I just
Go
want to
ahead.
say, like,
Absolutely.
I just want to say this. I never said I hated church. This is because I'm reading what Dre said about I've been hurt by church, but I didn't. I've never came into any of these places without having an open mind. I'm a very open-minded individual. You understand what I'm saying?
Mhm.
But I'm not the only person. There are a lot of people that reject the idea of Christianity, that reject church. The churches are not what they used to be to the community, to Black women more specifically. So when we say, "Oh, an open mind," or if I net, every church not the same, or that you come in with an expectation of not liking people, it's kind of like dismissive and unfair, because it's like, who the hell goes anywhere? I don't go to McDonald's expecting for not to like McDonald's. I go in there because this is what I like. But if the services of McDonald's is not up to what I need or my expectations, I have every right to say I don't want to go to McDonald's no more. I want to go to Burger King. So I feel like it's unfair to say, oh, well, you're not giving, you got to be open-minded, because I'm very open-minded. If I wasn't open-minded, I would be an atheist. I would reject the idea of God. I would I would have a whole smear campaign with Christianity. And I think we misconstrue critique for hate. I have every right to critique the church based off of my experiences. But just because I critique and analyze this institution does not mean that I say, hey, all Christians are gossiping, they two-faced it, they this and they that. I'm just saying my experiences of it were not what I wanted them to be. So instead, I'd rather not. And you have to be okay with that. You have to be okay with it. And even if you're not okay with it, just respect it for what it is. I just don't see myself in church. The end.
But do you
No,
know how
no.
many people will never step foot in a church building ever, but
Absolutely.
will watch a sermon online, or will, find somebody to watch their Bible study or do the work for
Hmm.
themselves. And again, that's what this pandemic is kind of giving everybody. People are not walking in our church doors anymore. They're just not. I don't know when
We
I'm gonna
can't
ever
even walk
walk
in our
back.
church doors anymore.
I don't ever know when I'll walk back into
No.
a physical church building. I
Right.
don't know. Nobody
It's
knows.
about our
So
mindset and our hearts at the end of the day.
yes, you can.
Yeah.
It literally, we have to really expand our mind so far beyond the point of somebody walking to or belonging to our four walls. You can partner with somebody. You can find a church online,
Exactly.
or a sermon online, a Bible study online. Different, but you don't. It's not about the four walls. And I think we're getting so small-minded, and we box what God is
God
doing.
and
We
what can
box
do.
church into
Yeah.
like the church building or belonging to this particular ministry, when it's really so much
Yeah.
bigger than that. It is
Yeah, this
Because
is
let's
so
be
church.
much
real.
bigger than that. And again, like you talk about moving forward after the pandemic, This is literally what this is about. The church is becoming way bigger than the four walls or belonging to a building. It's becoming available and capable for everybody in their home. For people who are never going to walk into
Absolutely.
our buildings, they're going to watch it online. They're going to find, if they want God,
They're
they're
gonna,
going to want
yeah.
God and do what it takes to get it, but they may not walk into the church. And we have to just understand that that's what it's going to
And
be.
He has the
They're not
power to
going to come
meet them
into the
where they
four walls.
are. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Absolutely.
This is
somebody is
church.
going to
This is
encounter
church.
God. Somebody's going
Absolutely.
to encounter God outside of the four walls. Somebody is going to encounter God and never walk in.
Absolutely. And we have to be equipped. That's the whole purpose of tonight,
Yeah.
right? So we want to be equipped because inside of the church or outside of the church, we have to be equipped for when these people have their moment to say, you know what, I want God, whether they want it in the church or out of the church. What have we done in this pandemic? Are we still bitter? Are we still
Mm.
focused on everything that we've experienced before, or are now we're moving and becoming better? Because honestly, if I could be just honest, if I was worried about, my past and on things that I experienced before the pandemic, I know I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing now. I
Absolutely.
know I would not have, a open platform for us to be having this conversation. Why?
Yes.
Because then I would still be mad about the things that I went through. But this
Mm.
pandemic
Time to
has
reflect.
caused
Yeah.
me, right, to really reflect
Mm-hmm.
on me. How can I, as Charmaine, how can me, not me as the first lady of a church,
Right.
me as Charmaine, as the woman that God has called me, how can I be better? What am I looking at myself to say, you know what? I was bitter in those areas, but in this time, I have allowed
Now
it
I'm
to
better.
make me
Yeah.
become better. And since I'm
Yeah.
better, I'm going to present the love of God in a new way, in a different way. I'm going to
Yeah.
love more. And these are the things that we've got to begin to present to people, whether they're in church or out of the church. Porsha, your ministry is so amazing. And
Yes, it is. I live
whether
for
you're
them
in
posts.
church or you're out of church, I am not gonna lie. God is limitless. And so I just
Absolutely.
believe that at some point, whether it's in 2 years, 10 years, 1 month, that God is going to speak. And just like He's using you outside of the church, He will use you
Mm-hmm.
inside of the church whenever, if the church door is open, right? So that's just us taking God out of our boxes and saying, you know what? Any way He does it, I know that He can because He is God.
I mean,
And
this is
we've
the
got, go ahead. We've just got
no.
to get to the place where we're not, just limiting God in every aspect of our lives.
Like this is the most in the past since March. This is the most church that I've felt, and it's not to
Wow.
shade
Wow.
anybody's ministry because everything isn't for you. And I think churches and their own individuality, that's a beautiful thing. And if it's for you, it's for you. But
Hmm.
this is church. These four segments have been church to me. You know what I'm
Wow.
saying?
Wow.
And
Wow.
I feel like if I rejected the idea of being used by God in the institution of church, I wouldn't have never signed up for this thing. I would have said, you know what, Lady Charmaine, it's no shade. I don't do y'all. You know what I'm saying? I just want people to realize that when people reject the idea of church, the institution of church, that them even conversing with Christians or them even saying, hey, you know what I'm saying? You know how it felt good for Brittany and you guys to be like, hey, I mean, I think it's kind of messed up, but I get it. I get you. To hear that's
Yeah.
advocacy. Jesus was an advocate for disenfranchised people. It
Absolutely.
didn't take away from Jesus's power to say, hey, you may not be who you need to be, but I get it. It's not right how you being done, but I understand it. I'm going to show you who God is. God is the solution. God is the
Yeah.
resolution. You know what I'm saying? That's
Hmm.
church. But when people want to bring in politics and all this other extra that you don't even need, that's the part of church. Like, so it's like, I can feel God even in this thing with me talking with you ladies, and maybe it is, but it's just funny how, like Brittany said, like we box God in, and He's so much bigger because I haven't been to church since the pandemic. And although I don't have plans on going back, if I never go back, being able to experience this with Black women, Christian Black women who get it, who say, yo, not everybody's like that, but we not invalidating your experience. This is the most God. This is the most God that I've felt without it being infused with emotionalism and traditionalism and performative worship and praise breaking that I have ever felt. And I'm not coming for nobody, but I'm saying what's real for me. And I'm not a monolithic person, but if I never step foot in a church again, not to take away from the churches I have been, but I know that God is real through this right here, knowing that even if I don't know, or even with my experiences with other churches, that you three women, that God lives and dwells within you, God, and that even though I'm not there are women that still advocate for women like me, even though I'm not subscribed to an institution. And that's what God is all about. God is not about me dressing up with my laptop, and I'm getting very emotional because I love God with all of my heart. And I miss church. I really do. I do. I miss church. But I just can't play with God no more. And I have people attached to me. I have a generational curse that I'm trying to break, and I cannot break it if I keep doing the same thing. But to know that God was even in the midst of this, to feel the emotion, because I know that even if I don't go to church no more, even if I never pray again, that there are women like you who advocate for my behalf. And now, I said earlier, I wouldn't recommend a woman to go to church. I would recommend them now. I would recommend them now. I wouldn't recommend them to a specific institution, a specific location, but I would tell a woman in the street, although I wouldn't do it, I would tell them, hey, I did a segment with these three women in church, and this is what happened. This is how it transformed me. This is how it shifted my perspective. So although I don't go to church, I would recommend it. Now my perspective on the institution of church and Black women and mean girl culture has shifted, because you guys have exemplified understanding and wisdom and love and compassion and empathy and patience. Now I can say, God, I get it, God, and it ain't about the church. It's not the church's fault. Every church is not the same. Everybody is not the same because of y'all. And that's what I want the world to see, that there's women like me who had a perception that all these mean Black women in church are just mean and nasty and bitter and need some sex. But there are Black women, but that's not true. That's not true. That there are Black women in church that have been through what I've been through and can really sit down and just say, listen, I get it. How can I be of service? So yes, my perspective on church, women, Black women in church has changed, but as of now, I still would no.
Wow. I am so full on tonight. Porsha, I'm so full on tonight. I want to say thank you to everyone on tonight. There are no words to describe what I feel right now, because if this was all just for you to see that we got you, and that you're not by yourself, and that we understand, because at some point we all was in your shoes. It's just that on our journey, God called us to where we are right now, and we've accepted our walk at this moment, and not to diminish where you are with God. I really want to say thank you for your transparency. We needed this. This is what people need to know, that it is okay to have this feeling. It is okay to, reject the idea of the institution because of what we've experienced,
Traditionalism.
but still say, I know there is a God and I love
Absolutely.
him with my whole heart.
Oh, yes.
And no matter where God takes me, I still won't reject the idea and the fact
Yes.
that God is real. And so,
That's right.
Porsha, I love you.
I
Thank
love you
you.
too.
And we will
Thank you.
always have you. We will always hold you
Yes.
down. I am my sister's keeper. You are not by yourself. It is not for any of us
Yeah.
to judge you on where you are or the things that you've gone through or what you had to get through for you to even have this moment. Maybe this is the path that God has designed for you, for the people that God has attached to your voice outside of the four walls of the church. So you be encouraged to know that you don't, even if you don't step foot in the four walls of the church, God is real in you, and there is no failure in him because people have failed you in the institutions
Yeah.
that you found yourself in. I love God on tonight.
Yes.
Like, the presence of God is really heavy. And I don't even know where Brittany went. I don't know. She may be having her own experience because honestly, I am so grateful for tonight. Thank you, Porsha. Thank you for your
Thank you.
honesty, for your
Yes.
realness, for your truth, and not being afraid to speak your truth and stand in what you believe and not being waver, but allowing what each one of us presented to you and showed you in a new way to say, you know what? I didn't before I wouldn't, but now I would tell somebody there are
Yeah.
women that are not
My
like what
God.
I've experienced. And that in itself is church. That is God. So I'm going to allow you women to have a few moments before we close, um, Porsha and then Anais.
I just want to say, that one, I appreciate you for even sharing your platform with me, and it is my greatest desire, maybe, that God elevate this platform and push it to further so that other women can see that everybody, not all black women in the church are mean. You know what I'm saying? There are some mean black women in the church,
Yeah.
but everybody is not mean. And I'm not even gonna sit up here and be performative and act like I hope God bring me back to church, because that's not where I'm at. However, I'm grateful for the opportunity and the reminder that he still exists. I'm grateful that he used this experience to open up my eyes and be a little more gentle, because sometimes, right, we want people to be sympathetic and empathetic to us, but we don't extend that same olive branch. So I'm
Yeah.
thankful to God that he was able to open up my eyes, remove the veil so I can see, just like I'm human and I haven't always been the perfect model Christian, well, not Christian, but the model member, that the women that have been mean to me have not been, the model member either. But the same way that I want forgiveness, I should forgive the women who failed me in church and be able to move forward. And, because I need to be healed from this thing, because I got a real bad taste in my mouth, but there's nothing that God cannot do. So I just want to say that I thank you, women, for exemplifying the love of God, his compassion, being advocates for my behalf, even if it didn't make sense and it wasn't articulate. You didn't invalidate me, and you really opened up my eyes, the three of you, and helped me to realize that even in spite of my hurt, that there's still purpose in that, and that I can still, that God can still do anything, and that I am the church, and not to hold the institution of church prisoner to my disappointment, because that's what I've been doing. I've been holding the church hostage, and not wanting to release it and accept it for what it is, which is, it's imperfect, at this point. But needless to say, I just thank everybody, and thank you, Lady Charmaine, Brittany, and
We love you. We love you.
I love
We
you
love you,
too.
girl.
Love you.
Um, a friend of mine and I were having a conversation, like maybe 2 or 3 days ago, like after the last Monday's session. And one thing she pointed out, she said, Anais, do you realize that not a lot of people, like in the beginning of the year before the pandemic hit, we were all planning, these women's seminars and these retreats and all of that. And then after this came and everything was shut down and everything was becoming canceled, you weren't seeing anything like this. And this right here is what's really needed. This is where healing is really taking place. Lady Charmaine, I don't know what kind of brain you got, but I thank God for it because this has really opened up, like this
Mhm.
platform. I truly believe that God is healing because I know there's some things that I need to like. I can't even look at myself in the camera right now because I know for a fact there's some things that I need to face and some things that I have to really, really dig deep into and get to the root of it because I'm a mom of 5 girls. And if I do not break that curse, it's just going to leap. It's just going to leap.
Mhm.
So this platform right here has really opened up just so much, not just, per se for the mean girls, but like I mentioned last week, once upon a time, I was the mean girl. And I think a lot of times we
Facts.
put the blame on the next person. And like I said before, we need to utilize this time to do a lot of self-reflection. And I believe that God had used Porsha even during this segment to prove to us that, sometimes we come in with a mindset of a thing. And we say he's an infinite God and he's a big God and he is the God of the impossible, but we still put him in this box to say, well, just be impossible over this thing. And he's like, no, 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 I can do this. So even within this past, hour and a half, we've seen God move in a way. And I'm quite sure Portia can say she's seen God move in a way that she didn't think, was
Absolutely.
ever going to be possible. Like, seeing the shift of a mindset. And that is what I think the biggest takeaway from this is going into, as Brittany stated, if we ever step back foot into a church again, but even if we don't, what are the tools that we are going to utilize? Like, are we equipped to to teach this gospel and preach this gospel, even if we don't have microphones and sound systems and 3-piece suits and the biggest hats with the crystals in it, like, and
Mhm.
convocations. Are we going to continue to utilize our platforms to reach people? Are we going to continue? Yes, we can post funny memes and we can talk about Jada and Will all day long and their entanglements, but we got some own. The church got a lot of entanglements of its own
A
that we
lot
need
of
to
Mhm.
be loose
entanglement.
from before we try to
Right.
help with anybody else's and their issues. So I think this has really opened up the door and given us an opportunity to really see the things that we thought were healed in the areas of the church that really are we're just laying kind of dormant or like we mentioned last week, just swept under the rug. And now it's time to really clean house and behold, from the pulpit to the door, from living rooms to bedrooms and bathrooms, because there's no more pulpits as of right now. Like this is our pulpit, not what we are accustomed to. And I think once we start to shift our mindset of what a pulpit is at this point, then we'll really start to see our healing take place. So I really believe that this has really opened up the door for God to do something so new. So thank you so much for this.
Thank you. Amen. Brittany.
We're talking about takeaways, right? I went black for a second. I don't know what was going on with my screen. But my takeaway from this is definitely like Anna said, I was that mean girl, right? Like I am pretty sure that there are people that can say I was mean to them and I offended them and they
Mhm.
don't want to go back to church. So this has made me look at myself and look at how I have been. And this year has kind of been that journey for me of like, who am I? Who do I want to be? So this is
Mhm.
just confirmation in that who do I want to be? How do I want to be perceived? How do I want to represent
Right.
God and represent myself and represent my family and my church? And it's also making me realize how do I want to present God to other people, and how do I want people to experience the God that is within me. Um, so this platform and this conversation is so important because I believe that so many women from so many different churches are listening and can take these things away to where when we do encounter other black women on the street, when we do encounter these other young girls or older women that are going to come in, how are we going to embrace them and really show them the fullness of God, the love of God, and the grace of God that God has extended to us? and also to give grace to ourselves so that we can extend grace
Yes.
to others. So that's really important. And I want to thank Porsha, and I want to thank Anna and yourself, Lady Charmaine, for just the opportunity to be transparent, to be have this dialogue, and to understand different perspectives of
Yeah.
how we as the church and we as women in the church are perceived, and how we're encountering, and how we can be better. This year is about being better. So this has definitely opened my eyes, and I hope it opened the eyes of so many women watching, so that we can just be a better church, a better body.
Yeah.
Amen. Thank you, ladies, for tonight. You guys are all amazing. I appreciate you. I'm choked up. I have no words. I just want to say thank you. I will be having you guys back on the show again. Thank you so much for tonight.
Amen.
Um, I am full. I don't have much words to say. I just want to say thank you to everyone who tuned in. We did go overtime. Thank you for sticking with us through it. It is my prayer that God that did something different and new in you, and that what you take away tonight will help you become better on your journey. God bless you. Thank you for joining the Sanctity of Sisterhood. I am my sister's keeper. Stay tuned for next week's conversation, discussion. It will be another amazing talk. We will release it on tomorrow. God bless you. Good night.